Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today we have a very special guest joining us. Liz is a we have a very special guest joining us today. Liz is a postpartum doula and certified lactation consultant. Her journey into the world of supporting new families was deeply influenced by her personal experience and professional background as a behavioral therapist for children with autism. Through her company, Nourished Families, Liz offers a range of services designed to provide compassionate, judgment-free support to parents during the often overwhelming postpartum period. From overnight assistance to hand-on education in newborn care and feedings, Liz is committed to helping families navigate the challenges of early parenthood with confidence and grace. As we delve into Liz's inspiring story, her approach to postpartum care, and the valuable insights she shares with new parents seeking support and guidance in their journey. Welcome, Liz.
Hi, Samantha. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. And Liz is also, which I forgot to mention, a Bucks County amazing entrepreneur. I love hosting Bucks County businesses, and we connected over Instagram and through a few different events I've seen you at, and I'm excited to have you on.
Sorry.
All right. So to start each episode, we have our wine, and win of the week. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that has been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So what is your wine, WINE of the week?
I am in my vodka era right now, but I always go back to rosé. So this week I'm drinking the bottle of Josh Rosé I had in my refrigerator.
I love a good Josh Rosé, and it is getting to rosé season today.
Coming lighter out later. It's so good. I love it.
Yes, it's amazing. It is. I feel the happiness. Yesterday we were leaving the gym, and I said to Willow, I'm like, do you smell the spring? And she's like, what? What are you talking about?
I know. Oh, I'm so happy. Yeah.
So what is your WHINE of the week?
Well, speaking of weather, my WHINE is that it's going to rain all weekend. And last weekend, I was so busy we went out in the sunshine, but I had all these things I had to do. And I was so ready to get out into getting lost in the woods, and it's supposed to rain all weekend. So that's my wine. That's my wine.
I was hoping that this weekend would be nice, but hopefully nicer weather is coming. What is your win of the week?
Oh, well, besides being on your podcast, I would say that I am doing a lot of work in updating my website and how I get organized and my processes. And I am working with this woman, Lex Lancaster, who's a big guru, and she and I are meeting quite frequently, and that's all coming to fruition. So the fact that I can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, even though thankfully for the rain Saturday, I'll be glued to my computer doing a ton of work for it. But yeah, the fact that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and getting squared up is a super win. Almost
That's
5
awesome.
years later, it's nice to get process in on the business end in place.
It's hard.
It is hard. I'm a mother lover. That is what I just want to hug moms and hold babies and, touch boobs. So getting the business end of everything has been a very slow climb. And now I've set the path and I can see the light, and it's really fantastic.
Well, I've noticed such a great change in just your social media presence since I've met you, which is really cool. All your videos are, not that they weren't so informative before,
don't go far back in my feed.
they're really awesome, and the stuff that you're putting out is so great. So the work that you're putting in is coming out good.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
You're welcome.
You know how hard the back end work is. It's crazy.
So hard. It's really so time consuming, but it's worth it.
It really is. It's the best. But yeah, it's more fun. I love being in front of people. So this all is just there's moments where it just feels so Herculean, and the fact that there's a light is a huge win.
Congrats. So I always like to ask my guests, what is one struggle you've overcome leading to where you are now? And what is one thing that you are most proud of in life?
So it's so funny. You sent me some questions so I could get sort of squared up and ready. And initially I always think that my road to mothering was a rocky one. I call myself gestationally disabled. And I always think of that as it, but I am 4.5 years into a divorce. And I think that that now have thought like over like getting through that and creating a relationship with my children's father that is still workable. But the truth is, of late, probably back in August, I sort of felt a little static, and I committed myself with a therapist and a lot of meditation and journaling and things to changing my script in my head. And I would say that that is something I'm constantly working on. I sort of got to a place where in my professional life, I need to start practicing what I preached in my personal head. And I would say reshaping the script in my head and sort of the role that we were cast in as little tiny people I'm actively working on it, actively working on it. I'm certainly not there yet. But the fact that I recognize it now and I'm overcoming it and I'm putting my arms around it and committed to working on it every day, I think is something that I'm just recently exceedingly proud of myself for, facing all the things that changing that language in your head. You know, we all talk so kindly to one another and we don't give ourselves that same language. And I am just ridiculously hard on myself in a way that is sort of unfair to me. So that, I think right now I'm in the throes of it. I'm definitely deeply in the throes of it. There's a lot of moments of feeling somewhat untethered to something around all of it, but that is something that I'm becoming really proud of myself for.
And that's amazing because it is something that you're working on yourself to be a better person, which is hard. And a lot of people are not doing it. We actually today at school had a program come in. It's called Friends of Rachel. And it actually, long story short, it aligns with like starting with one of the victims of the Columbine back in the day. But the whole mission is to spread kindness. And we talked a lot, you know, we're talking to teenagers. The presenters were just amazing. And they were talking to the teenagers about, you know, self-confidence and talking to yourself. But the teachers were very much involved in it as well. Like we were just on board as the kids were. And just the talking to yourself is a huge thing that people really get caught up in their minds.
Yeah.
Like like you said, you're talking to all these people. You wouldn't say the things that you're saying to yourself to someone else who's doing what you're doing, which is kind of crazy when like ridiculous when you think about it.
And my daughter is 13 and a half years old. And that's really sort of what motivated me to get out of, there were a lot of factors, you know, thank you so much for pointing out my social media presence. It's grown a lot in the last year. And that is sort of where it began. Like, why on God's green earth did these people want to listen to me? I'm holding on for dear life every single day. But also I'm watching my 13 and a half year old just navigate life. And there's so many parts that she is literally my greatest teacher. And there's so much of her that's so amazing, but I also watch her fade into the woodwork at times. And that is the age where all of that happens. And I thought she's so, all kids are so perceptive, but it's one thing to talk the talk, but she is a very detail noticing oriented human. And my words weren't matching my actions. And I can only ask her to care for herself if she sees me caring for myself. And it's really hard. It's a ginormous struggle. I had to learn even what that meant. And I'm still figuring it out. But I am, trying to get over the imposter syndrome, which is real.
It's hard. It's hard. It is. I have it as well. And I talk about it a lot with even the podcast. Like people are like, oh my gosh, you have this podcast. It's so, you know, whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. I just like talking to people. It's nothing, no big deal. And then, you know, but I would never talk to, I would say the same thing that people are saying to me to other people, but you're like, why do you think that about me? I don't know.
Yeah, my videos go out and I like look at every
They're
single
so
thing.
good.
But all I see is all the things that are wrong, and it's just great, you know, and I just have to stop because there's if not for me.
And the other gift that you're giving your daughter is if she ever becomes a mother or a wife or, you know, even into adulthood, that she's going to know that she she should still be working on herself. It doesn't
Yeah.
stop when you graduate high school. It's
My
great to
best.
keep working on yourself and work through those. So you're giving her great tools.
Oh, thanks. Working on it.
Yeah. So the running wine mom, we always start off with fitness. So how do you stay active?
So I'm a yoga goer. I love yoga. I love like keeping my body limber and calming my hummingbird of a brain. Always just going, always just going. So I'm a regular yogi. And also I am someone who just needs to get like outside. I love getting
Mm-hmm.
walks in the woods. I love going on bike rides. Like we live by the Delaware River, and the canal. So I love riding the canal.
Mm-hmm.
Just anywhere I can be outside. It is my physical being. It is my when things are hard and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
where to be. I need to get lost in the woods.
Yeah.
I'm a big, that's my kids and I go camping, we go hiking, we've been to upstate New York, we've been all over the place, and that is where I live. I love it.
We live in such an amazing area for
Much
outdoor
easier.
activity.
So
We're
I love
so lucky.
rocks and
Mm-hmm.
mix, all of it. I do it all. Yeah, everywhere. I love it.
Awesome.
Tyler, it's my favorite. It's my favorite. Yeah.
So how do you stay motivated to maintain your fitness routine?
Um, by losing my mind. Yeah, I don't really have any true motivation. I should be better at it, but when my anxiety is something that I can't get my arms
Mm-hmm.
around, it is greater than me. Um, I've found really actually, I used to be a runner. When I was married, I was up and running. I've done the Broad Street and lots of different 5Ks. But once I left and found my own peace, I really kind of realized that I was running from something then. So now, like my anxiety and my not being able to calm myself, it's bigger than me. There's just like this moment where I'm like, I can't be here. So I
Yeah.
have no real
Yeah.
motivation outside of not losing my mind.
That's motivation enough.
Yeah.
Uh, so besides, not having a real motivation, what struggles do you have to stay healthy and fit?
Um, so making time for it. I do make time twice a week, every week to do yoga. Part of it is social and part of it is because it just really just feels good on my body. I'm 47 years old. And as I've gotten older, I just need to like release my shoulders and release my back. So that is it. And I do it with people. So my
Mm-hmm.
people in my life are the motivational factors and the things that keep me going. Other than that, I have to say I eat healthy. I I'm sure we'll get to it, but I did have a pretty rough road to motherhood, and it did a lot. It impacted my physical being a lot, and impacted my hormones and how I process. So, eating wise, I had to change some things of how I ate as a result of hormonal changes in my life. So, just straight up reaction is
Mm-hmm.
how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned the hard way. And when I don't eat the way that my body works, I kind of think of it as having one too many glasses of wine. I know if I'm going to eat like the things that don't react well to my body, I'm going to have to deal with a food hangover the next
Yeah.
day. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a good any of the things that like I'm not disciplined the way like you are. Some of the other guests on your show have been, but it's all like literally cause and effect. Everything I do,
Yeah.
fitness and nutrition is getting older and cause and effect.
As long as you're moving your body, that's the most important thing. It doesn't matter how, when, where. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 5 hours a day.
Yeah,
Doesn't
in my
matter.
late 30s, I realized that in order to stay a semblance of sane, even if it's just like a nice walk, and I have,
Mhm.
if people follow me, they know my dog Steve. He and I walk all over the place all the time. So,
Yeah, that's great. So let's kind of transition into parenthood. Yeah, as you mentioned, your little doggy. Tell us about your family.
so I am the mother of three. Technically, I hold one in my heart and two in my arms.
Mhm.
As I've said, I had a really crazy, rocky road to motherhood, one that I legitimately had just didn't even fathom. When I think about when my ex-husband and I decided to become parents, I was so insanely cavalier about it. The truth is, I have an older brother. He has two boys, and his youngest has a rare genetic disorder. And we did a lot of genetic counseling prior to getting pregnant. at that time, I was a behavioral therapist for people with autism, and my nephew, who I lovingly call the Wonder because he's wondrous, has a really intense, very rare genetic disorder called Bardet-Biedl syndrome. It affects 1 in every 120,000 people, and it has
Wow.
a lot of neurological, developmental, and physiological things. He's legally blind. There's a lot of things that go with it, and he has enhanced our family, my greater family, immensely. But it also, not only has he, not a but definitely an there's a lot that goes along with having someone who's going to need a lifetime of needs. So my ex and I decided that to do genetic testing, while I think I'm equipped, although now I'm glad we did it, to handle a person with needs. I really felt like if we knowingly were going to have a person with that needs, we were taking something from him. And we decided collectively that if we were going to come back and have a child with that same disorder, that we were opting out of having children so that we could pool our finances for his long-term care, which he will need. So we went through a lot of genetic testing, and then when everything came back, I'm a genetic cesspool. I'm Jewish, and there's a whole panel that goes with it. Thankfully, my ex-husband is only half, so he made everything safe. But once we got the green light that everything would be okay, I was really cavalier about having babies. So I so arrogantly said, like, 12-year-olds and crackheads poop these things out.
Yeah.
And getting pregnant was not an issue for me. My ex could look at me and I would be pregnant. So we got cleared. We got pregnant with our first. I had all the things I did not know. I had oh my God, I just lost the word. But when you puked, I had the Meghan Markle.
Oh, yeah.
Vomiting all the time. Did not take any medications because I was just my first. So literally on a good day, I was getting sick like 10 times. On a bad day, it was like 20 times. I was still working. It was all the things. And things were going wrong, but I didn't know what I didn't know then. And I, blindly had faith in my doctors. At 28 weeks, I met my ex-husband for lunch because I wasn't feeling well. He took one look at me and said, "You need to go to the doctors." I went and they sent me to the emergency room. And I didn't ask any questions. It was a whole thing of a thing. And the next day, no one helped me. So I said, let's go. Let's go home. I want to be out. I was released. And then a week later, this is like the beginning of a Lifetime movie event, we were at my ex-father-in-law's funeral. And I know, it's literally a Lifetime movie event. And I woke up and felt like I had to go to the like I had to poop, like I had to go to the bathroom. And I said, let's go for a walk. And we went for a walk. And again, unknowingly, like, we're women, we're strong, everything's fine. I couldn't walk up steps, but I didn't think about it. I went to the bathroom. There was like a drop of blood. But that happens again. See, so they called, they said, let's go, you're probably fine, but go to the ER. We went to the ER. And on the way there, I thought I was in labor. And they wheeled me into the emergency room. I didn't walk in myself, which is unusual for me because I am stupidly overly tough, as most women are. And all the wheels came off the bus. And we ended, I was they misdiagnosed a preeclamptic diagnosis. I was transferred and from one hospital to another. And in the ambulance, I literally felt my son's last heartbeat.
No.
Yeah, so it almost just shy of 29 weeks, I delivered our first child, who was a stillbirth.
Jeez.
Yeah, his name is Honey.
God.
Yeah, so yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
really,
Totally crazy.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's like a terrible story. It's obviously a terrible story, and stillbirth and infant loss and miscarriage and all of it. I come from a space of, they're all devastating. Ectopic pregnancies are devastating. Miscarriages are devastating. Stillbirth is devastating. Infant loss is devastating. It is my personal belief that every minute your child, the harder it is. Stillbirth, I will carry with me forever. It's what got me to, a lot of what got me to where I am today. And also it is like, it's changed my life for the better. So it ended up being life-saving measures. In when you have a stillbirth, you have to deliver. I knew that. I had a friend who lost a child a year before in the same manner. And I was all ready to go. I wanted to be home because we were away from my ex-father-in-law's funeral. I wanted to go home when I noticed I hadn't stopped bleeding, when they were taking, IV and stuff like that. And I ended up knowingly sort of like losing control. So they ended up delivering me and my son, Sonny, as life-saving measures, because I went into, I had placental abruption, which caused DIC, which is in vascular coagulations, with all of the blood, all of your clotting stops working in your body. So it was pretty intense. I was in the ICU for 3 days. It was nuts. And my son Sonny saved my life, because in that moment I was still his mom. And all I knew was that I had to deliver this little tiny person, and I wanted to meet him and I wanted to know him, and that was all that I was focused on. And so I actually, like, for the first time, like, spoke up for myself and did all the things, because I was so busy being Sonny's mom. And so he saved my life. And then 13 months, and after going through lots of testing and changing doctors and doing all the things, 13 months and 3 days later, I had my daughter that I hold in my hands, Amelia. And she was born. Again, I was sick as a dog. I was on restricted bed rest because they didn't really know what happened. I went to the doctors twice a week, every week. And 2 months early, my body stopped making amniotic fluid. And so
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you,
I didn't even know that could happen.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely can. Yeah, your levels can go down. I'm gestationally disabled. I'm great once they come out, but I always say my kids are like so delicious and happy, because living inside of me is like living in the projects. They're just happy to be on the outside. So so she was born, and women are stronger in utero. They spend less time in the NICU. They develop faster. We are the stronger species. So that powerhouse.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, I was born. I went into labor with her at 28 weeks. They stopped it. And then 2 months early, she was born, didn't spend a minute in the NICU, and came home.
Wow. That's awesome.
Powerhouse. And then I was on a mission to give her a sibling. So I had, we got pregnant again. I had a miscarriage. And actually, I was hosting Passover Seder, and I knew it was happening, and everyone had just been through all this stuff with me. So I just turned to my then husband and my cousin, the only two people who knew I was pregnant, and said, I'm in the throes of having a miscarriage. Everything's fine, but we need to like serve this dinner and get everybody out. And my cousin was like, here's a glass of wine. We'll do that. Yeah. Then we decided to give it another go, and I had another miscarriage. And then my then husband and I decided that I had sort of like one more shot. By this time, I was 37 years old. Yeah. 36, going to be 37. And we had Sullivan, who will be 11 in June. And he was planned born 5 weeks early. And opened all C-sections. And when they opened me up, my uterus was so stretched thin that you could see through him. So
oh my God. I was like waiting, like, what are you going to say now?
And it would have ruptured. Thankfully, I did not have one. So they tied my tubes and told me, you will never try this again. And I said, that is more than fine with me. I have as many children as I have hands, and that's all that I wanted anyway. And off to the races. So that journey is sort of like how I landed sort of where I am now. It's just
wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a ride. It was a ride, but it was 5 minutes. I mean, it's shaped who I am in a huge way. That's why I say, like, you asked me what my biggest thing I ever overcome. That's why I used to say, like, becoming a mom was it. But we're like, that's what we do, kind of.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because it is like, as for your, 10 plus years out of that whole phase, I'm thinking of it as, in my mind, because my kids are so young, like 3, I would, if that happened like recently to me, which is interesting, just like the way that I'm kind of picking that up. But it is so interesting that it is such a blip of kind of, but such an important
it's not
chapter.
the
And
shifting of my
yeah.
life, but in the map of my life, it's such a minute,
Hmm.
so crazy.
Yeah.
And it felt like forever. It took me,
Yeah.
but I mean, my kids are 3 years apart, so I had
Right.
5 pregnancies in 3 years. Yeah,
Gosh.
and
Wow.
3 of them like almost to term. I mean, nobody
Right.
got. No, I didn't. I don't. What I think now, this far out from it, is I don't know how any of you go to. I don't know how any of you do labor. I don't know how you go to term. Like, there's a
Well,
part of me that's grateful for all of it because I don't know how you all do it.
Well, Willow was breech, so I had a scheduled C-section with her, and they did want to try to flip her with the inversion,
Yeah.
but I opted not to, and thankfully not because she was a marginal placenta. So if they flipped her, my placenta could have abrupted.
I
Um,
listened to your podcast with the
yeah,
woman who does birth, who's the
yeah,
lawyer. Yeah, so I was
yeah.
like, reach out to her because that was
Oh,
a whole.
you should. Yeah, she was so informative. And that's what
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, that's what I was telling her about with like I was like, "Oh my gosh," like and nobody told me about it. So,
it's the same thing. They miss so many things, and no one
yeah.
with Sunny, and no one
Right.
told me. And then I went to Pennsylvania Hospital. I live in Doylestown now, and I still drive to Center City to see the
Mhm.
doctors that delivered Millie and Sully because
Oh, that's great.
they just. I mean, I'm Facebook friends with some of them. Like when you
Yeah.
And now my OB, she refers clients to me now. Like it's
That's
crazy.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is such a I mean, it's hearing where you were in your pregnancy and it's no wonder you help women with the way that you do, with the passion that you do because you have been through it more
It's
than
so tricky for everyone. And we're all as like this could be a whole thing, but
yeah.
it's so tricky and we're so cavalier about it. But
Hmm.
there's so much that they don't know. And
Yeah.
it's not anybody's fault. The placenta is a temporary organ. So
Right.
it's really tricky. And we just all, as you know, it's the plight of being a female in this country in such a big way.
Hmm.
I just think that we can power through
We
and
do.
yeah, and we should like care for each other a little,
Yeah,
ourselves
it's
and one another
needed.
so much more
I
for
know
real.
it's so needed. And that's the one thing when I came into motherhood as well, I like didn't I just kind of see, oh yeah, my friends were like, yeah, I had a baby. Cool. Or like, oh yeah, I had to
Yeah,
have a C-section or like, oh this, it was all very like nonchalant. And then you have a baby and you're like, wait, my
yeah.
delivery was like pretty normal, but the people whose are not, like, how are they even dealing with this? And and then I don't even want to get started on paternity leave, but it's
Well,
like then
talk.
just come right back to work. I
Yes,
was very lucky with mine because I worked in New Jersey, or I do work in New Jersey, but I can't believe like my one friend is having a baby and she gets 6 weeks unpaid leave.
oh, I
And it's
had a
like,
client a couple years ago. The baby just turned 2 weeks ago, who was a designer, fashion designer, and like literally, we were taking her computer away, like
you're like, yeah.
delivery, and people, and in her postpartum, like the day she came home, I was there, and her bosses
Oh
was
my,
like, It's fine. It's fashion. It's
yeah.
fashion.
And
You're
yeah,
gonna be fine." Like,
it'll be fine.
and she can't even. There's liquids and things coming out of
Yeah.
every orifice. I just can't for one moment. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
And
gosh.
I've worked with so many clients who work for big pharma or big companies,
Hmm.
and they just some of the ones that are great are amazing, and the ones that
Hmm.
are just like,
I know. I feel like it's two separate ends. It's like
yeah,
you either have a lot or you have nothing. There's
yeah.
no in between.
I had one woman that I worked with who had twins, who is out in California, who works in big tech, and she was high up in big tech, and her leave was kind, but the second it came to a close, the like velocity in which she
Yeah.
was back, and she had 2-month-old twins, like or they were a little older than 2 months, but like
But either
not
way, yeah.
like it's crazy, yeah,
Ugh.
crazy, yeah.
Yeah. So besides pregnancy, what were you least prepared for in parenthood?
I think especially as they're getting older, what I find that I'm sort of least prepared for and still am is the notion that I am mom.
Mm-hmm.
Gravity of that title, I on the daily am have a lot of reverence for and also am completely overwhelmed by, especially as my children get older. I love where they are and it's great, but just that, like, they wake up every morning and blindly believe that I am mom. And that,
you have
like,
all the answers.
yeah. I think they've gotten to the point now that they actively know I don't have all the answers. Pretty
Oh,
upfront
good.
with
So that'll come to an end, right?
yeah. It kind of has to at some point. But yeah, like that notion of being their grown up is, I love it and I have such reverence for it. And also, I was not prepared for the weight of it, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So what's one piece of advice you would give other parents?
Again, this is something I'm learning every day. But the piece of advice I give to parents on the daily is honesty. Like honesty with yourself, honesty with your kiddos, honesty with your partners. You know, we have this notion of rightness and being correct and doing it well and doing it right, not well. Because there's a difference. There's a really profound difference in doing things well and doing things right. And there is, everybody's right is different. But if you do it well, if you do it with your whole heart and you do it with honesty, I think that just goes so far. And when you can't wrap your arms around that honesty, or it just comes at you too fast and you don't have the right answers, the other big piece that I think is so important in parenting is repair. It's okay and it's right and it's empowering to say to our children that you are figuring out this humaning right alongside of them, and that's a moving target, and that you're not always going to get it right. I think it bonds parents and children together more. I think it gives them an opportunity to trust you and listen to you more when you're actually talking. And I think it gives children the freedom to also do well, but not whatever right is.
Right.
So honesty and repair are the things that I talk about a lot with families and that I talk about with my kids a lot. And yeah, and just the other, because I talk about this is like what my life is like all day, every day. The other ginormous thing that I say to people and that I try to remind myself is that they're just little tiny humans. And like to really be cognizant of the fact that they're just little tiny humans, that like they have their emotions are valid. They aren't going to always do it right, that we're all going to try to come together in a lot of different ways. So it sort of all goes back to that honesty piece, but those are the big nuggets that I
No,
that's my own parenting, definitely.
I know it's so much easier said than done.
Than others, for sure.
It all depends on the situation. But yeah, making them know that you're human, I think, is something that definitely we strive for, because I feel like the way, like with our parents' generation, it was very much like, because I said so, like instead of saying like, even because I feel like this because I said so sometimes was just because they didn't know. And it's just like, well, that's why. And, it's like, instead of being like, well, I'm not really sure, or what, we can talk about
that a lot is like, when I say like, I don't know, what my answer to is like, it's not because I said so. There are moments, especially now that my kids are almost 11 and almost 14. And I say like, when there's moments where they push back, I say like, you do have to like give me something that I've walked on the earth longer than you have.
Yes.
You can listen to my experience and I'll talk about how you perceive it. But I do get I get more points than you because I've been on this earth longer.
For sure. I like that.
That's my version of because I said so. Like I certainly am not, like I don't do it all right all the time. And I do have moments of like, yeah, I am mom. So sit down, kid. Like,
well, you have to have that too.
My kids are door holders. They're yes, sir, and yes, ma'am people. They're please and thank yous. It's really important to me that they treat the world with respect. I mean, I think that people earn respect. I always hope that they start in that place. And so that's sort of like, that's what my honesty looks like. It's like some days I don't know, and some days you have to trust that like I've walked this. You've
done it. Yeah. That's
great. I've been there. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into what you do. So, can you start off and share with us what inspired you to become a postpartum doula and lactation consultant, especially considering your personal journey with pregnancy and motherhood?
Yeah. So, you heard my pregnancy
Hmm.
journey. When I was pregnant with Sonny, as I said before, I am a Jewish woman in this country, and there are some stereotypes that do derive from some truth. And I have a very loving mother who is very, at times, stereotypically Jewish in the Saturday Night Live routine way of it. And she will literally like suffocate you with her love. And boundaries are things, as I said in the beginning of this, that I am just learning now. My then husband worked in an office where people were hiring this incredible woman who is now my mentor. I refer to her as Super Doula Teresa. Teresa,
Oh.
Teresa Warboleski. She is local to this area. She still is a doula, not as much full time, but she is magic. Um,
Mm.
and I had heard that from other friends who were having kids, and I had a lot of deep concerns of how I was going to parent without being
Hmm.
told how to parent. And we hired Teresa to be the boundary for me, to help
Okay.
assert myself with my mom and to like put parameters on it. When we lost Sonny, she magically, without anything, just we went to the mailbox one day and there was a folder filled with all the resources in the world to help you navigate that.
Wow.
And then we hired her again with Millie, and she it was just amazing. I attribute a lot of what I perceive of my good parenting as she set me off on the right path. Literally, I say this to clients now because my goal is to always make people feel how I felt every time Super Doula Teresa left my house, which is like there were cartoon bluebirds flying. And actually, she and I were just talking a couple weeks ago, and twice, and never happened before or after. She was at my house then, and a bird flew in my house twice. And not
Oh my
only
God.
did she stay calm and shoo the bird out, she identified it as a house wren. And it was hilarious. And we were literally like 2 weeks ago just texting about this.
Oh my gosh.
Every time I'm in a home, I strive to have my families feel how loved and supported and heard and seen I was by Teresa. Um, when I was when my daughter Millie was 2 years old, my father had been ill before when I was getting married, and then went into remission, and then his cancer came back. And I was at that time a behavioral therapist for people with autism, doing respite wraparound care, and working in the afternoons. And my mom was watching my daughter for me, and my father became so ill that she couldn't. And grateful, in such a grateful way, and I will always be grateful to him for this, we were able to work that I could stay home, because it was going to cost more to like go to
Hmm.
care than it was, what I was
Yeah.
doing. And my mom also needed extra hands. So I stayed home with my daughter and we could swing it. And then when I got pregnant with my son, we just kept on that train. My children got older, and I knew that my marriage was not in the best of places, and I wanted to do things to sort of really give back. And I called Super Doula Teresa and said, I'm thinking, well, I had prior to calling Super Doula Teresa, I had two different people approach me about being a death doula.
Hmm.
And I really looked into that, and I am empathetic to a fault, and I didn't
Hmm.
I'd be able to release that. So I called Super Doula Teresa and said, what do you think? What do you think about me doing this? And she said, oh, please, like,
Yeah.
do. And when you're, I mean, she's just, you have those people in your life where you think, like, I'm not sure I'm doing today right. And then you think this person thinks you're a good person, so you must
Hmm.
do something right. She's just an incredible human. And
That's
when she agreed, I knew that's where I needed to be. And my road was a lot of it. I wanted to like provide a place. I wanted to give Sully, that he does have a life. Sonny, big mistake naming your children something similar.
yeah.
Um, there is meaning behind all of their names,
Yeah.
but that went through. I wanted to give Sonny some sort of life. My
Hmm.
logo is a sunshine. Um,
Oh.
he is sort of that. And I also wanted to give a space for birthing parents to
Hmm.
hate pregnancy. I hate pregnancy.
Hmm.
To be supported, to be heard, to be seen. So I started there. It was amazing. The second I started training and going through all of it, I hate pregnancy, but I am amazed. I really hate pregnancy. It's gross. I am always, if anyone wants to dump their bucket, it is a miracle. I get it. It's beautiful. And it's so gross.
Yeah.
I had all the things. Like, not only was I sick, not only did I have preeclampsia, I was gestationally diabetic with my daughter. I had pups. I had all if there was a thing to have, I had it.
You had it.
Yeah. Protein and all the things, everything. So yeah, I hate it. I think it's gross. So all those listening, if just, send me a
you're
text.
not alone. Yeah.
I will be there with you. But yeah, so I knew wanted to leave. I knew I wanted to give back. I also knew that my marriage was ending and I wanted to and my kids were getting older. They were in school full time.
Yeah.
Go back. It was all the things. And so, yeah, I went, and it's amazing. Like, what the body does, how babies develop is super cool. How they continue to develop in that 4th trimester. And then specifically in that first year of life, it's just really we're just mammals, and it's really fascinating.
It is the coolest thing to watch, because you're like, and I noticed it with my daughter, but I really noticed it with my son, because when like Willow had a personality, obviously, by the time that he was born, and then all of a sudden, like, he's born and you're like, you literally, I only have to feed you and like keep you alive. That's it. That's all you can do.
Mammal meatloafs, just little mammal. Yeah.
And I'm like, how does it become what she is?
It's amazing. Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, exactly that. And so about a year and a half into being a postpartum doula, I really became obsessed with the feeding process. Not so much the active feeding. To your point, we are just mammals, and us older, more experienced or damaged mammals seem to get in the way of the feeding process. And I just saw the toll it was taking on, primarily women, but the feeding parents and birthing parents. And I just wanted to quiet the noise for them. I just saw like a really need for it. And I still am obsessed, somewhat, like, you can say passionate, but it's a little bit of an obsession about making that path and that journey okay for parents, however they see fit. And so I went on to get my certification in lactation. And I'm obsessed. Like, I'm obsessed with it. I just want to make it for everybody.
Yeah. And that's another thing, that it's just like, you're just supposed to know what to do, and you don't. Like, that's just not the case.
And the fact that we think you're supposed to is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
On some level, I get it. Like, I can't imagine there's a giraffe and, in Africa being like, am I making enough? But also, like, we are humans, and we come to this position with so much noise in our head. And I say all the time, every time a new little human is born, so are parents. And it doesn't matter if it's your first or your 31st, you are a different parent every single time you do it. And and you're also caring for a new human who is a different person every time you're doing it. And our love for them and the hormonal tsunami that our body is going through postpartum, it just gets in the way. And we need to just give that so much light and life, and let it be, that needs to be the norm. That needs to be,
I agree.
that is always spoken, is that you are supposed to be a mess. You are sleep deprived. Your body is recovering from trauma, which is birth. But even in the best of circumstances, whether or not you choose to feed from the body or you're using formula, your body is still producing all of that. I mean, it is the most drastic, quick change that your body will ever go through, no matter what your body goes through. It's a long time to recover from it. And so it just became this thing that I needed to scream to whoever wants to listen.
I love it. So what does a typical day look like in postpartum care for maybe like a family that you're working with?
So if I'm a postpartum doula, my sessions are 3 hours long. Sometimes people do back-to-back, slightly longer, but I generally do the 3 hours. And I come in, with everybody I work with, they get a little notepad. I have one here. It has my little logo on it. Cute. And they can either text it to me, or they can leave it on the counter. It's called the Liz list. And it's all the things they want to go over or things that they want to accomplish or get done or that they want me to accomplish and get done. So I can't say what every single looks like because every single client is different. Every single day with a client is different. But a lot of times it looks like me walking in, reviewing how the day, if I'm there in the morning, how the evening went, if I'm there in the afternoon or evening, how the evening day went, check in with the parents, see how everyone's doing, see how the birthing parents' recovery is coming, see how they're feeling emotionally and physically. And then some days I look at them and they both look exhausted and I take that little baby out of their hands and I send them away for 3 hours so that they can rejuvenate, spend some time together or sleep, depending on what's going on. Sometimes it looks like there has been a lot going on and they need a safe space to dump their bucket. And maybe we go back and forth between holding baby and not holding baby, and we sit and we just talk. It can look like a therapy session for 3 hours. Sometimes it looks like a combination of all of that. If I send the parents away, a lot of times I'll do light housekeeping, I'll do laundry, take care of baby. I do food prep for people. I try to
That's what I just saw your one video, and you make Jello shots for people.
I have put together closets. I have Halloween costumes. I have made Easter baskets.
Oh my gosh.
I have packed suitcases. This one I didn't put in the video, but I have picked out bridesmaids dresses for people. I have all the things. It looks like whatever you need to survive. And just support for the sake of support without strings.
Yeah.
If we're doing feeding stuff, that looks really different. A lot of times it looks like really educating on feeding, talking really about how the body works, the mechanics of feeding, positioning, making sure mom is comfortable, really setting up a safe space for mom or the feeding parent to be calm and collected, and then attacking all the questions. Sometimes I sit with families and it's just 3 hours of rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
So every day is different, but I hope it always looks like support, and those bluebirds is really what I'm always looking for.
So how do you kind of tailor your services to meet the specific needs and preferences of each family? Is that after you meet with them that first time and then you kind of...
So the process is generally, there's a phone call. If everyone likes a phone call, I do a visit. I don't want anyone to sign a contract with me until they've met me in person. Clearly, I am somewhat high energy, and it's really, really important to me that families feel that that they feel safe and warm and comfy with me. I always encourage families to interview more than just me. I'll even give names of other doulas so they can see what fits best. But if everything goes well, then we sign contracts. I do one prenatal visit, and in that visit, I do actually stop talking at some point. I do have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So I walk all over their house. They tour me all over their house, and I do a lot of observations of the dynamics of a family. And I really try to get a feel of the rhythm of the house. And then once the baby is born and they're there, I work really, really hard to have the baby fit the rhythm of the family rather than the family adjusting to the rhythm of the baby. And it's a moving target all the time. And we're always talking about it. We're always talking about whether or not this feels right. This is what they want it to feel in the future, what it looked like before, how they see it changing. And then using a lot of fact-based evidence and then also a lot of observation, we just build systems, both functional ones that you can see, touch, and hold, and also emotional ones that giving language to partners, because it's really, really hard. The dynamic of partnership changes dramatically, so intensely. And a lot of times the birthing parent is then the primary care parent, and supporting parents don't always know how to jump in. Sometimes they feel left behind. Some supporting parents also experience postpartum mood disorders, and that can make a birthing parent feel kind of resentful. So we're always talking about those dynamics. I do a lot of together and apart stuff. In the pandemic, when this all came to a screeching halt, I came up with something called Doula on Demand. And now every time someone's working with me, they have access to this service. It's 24-hour support for everyone in the family. I've even gotten texts from grandparents and sisters and siblings, but it's for birthing parent, supporting parent, and it's about everything. It's not just about trust me, I get a lot of pictures of poop. But it's not just that. It's all the things. Sometimes it's I'm going to kill my mother-in-law. Sometimes it's Why doesn't he know to pick up the baby?
Mm-hmm.
It's all the things. And then so it's always moving. It's a lot of observation and making sure that everyone feels like they can live without me. That's always my goal. That they feel
Oh, that's
empowered, that they're
nice.
going to survive without me.
So, in the realm of, talking about all the emotions that come with postpartum, how do you find, besides just listening and observing, maybe with someone specifically struggling with postpartum depression or anxiety, how do you approach those areas?
So there's a test. It's an 11 question. I forgot the name of it at the moment. Sorry. Ugh.
No, it's okay.
Overnights sometimes make my brain not work, and I'm in some overnights right now. But there's is it 11 or 13 questions? There's a questionnaire. You can see it. I'm part of our postpartum training, and actually in lactation too, is to learn and trained on communication and observations around postpartum mood disorders. So generally what happens is I'll kind of take note. I'll start with the birthing parent. I'll just ask questions about how are you feeling? Are you feeling let's talk about your anxiety levels. I've made this observation. How are you feeling? I'll be very subtle about it and see how it's received. If it's received in a way that actually leads to postpartum mood disorders are spectrum.
Right.
So there's a lot of varying degrees. So if depression or anxiety or obsessive compulsive seems high alert, I'll pull back right away and I'll go to the supporting parent and I'll say we need to have a conversation.
Right.
And then with that, either if someone is in an acute state, I'll have the supporting parent fill out that questionnaire and it points exactly to what's happening. When they hire me, people know that this is part of what comes with me. So it does. I've supported quite a few families and we've gotten them, and I've supported a nice handful that were acute. So while they are not 100% comfortable with it, they do know it's out there. A lot of families that hire me have a history of some sort of anxiety and depression. When that happens, a lot of times they'll sign off for their therapist, their active therapist, to talk with me. And when I see that happening and it's acute, I'll go right to the partner and to the therapist and we'll attack it from that point of view. If the birthing parent is receptive to it, we have conversations. Part of one of my favorite things about what I do is that I come with an army of people who know better than me behind me. And I work with a lot of therapists all over the place, everywhere from Philadelphia to Mercer County to Bucks to Montgomery County. And I get to know my clients really well. So I'll hand who I think works best for them and set them up with a counselor. And then there's a lot of other people that I work with. I work with chiropractors and pelvic floor therapists and craniosacral people and yoga teachers and organizers and all sorts of people. So where I can see a need, I'll try to pick to make the people's life a little bit easier and a little bit more gentle. But people know when they're hiring me that this is what I'm on the lookout for always.
Yeah. And how about with adjusting to siblings? How do you help with that at all?
Oh yeah, that's a big key. That a lot of my behavioral life comes back into place for that. We talk about that again. That'll right before they hire me, I'll ask if that's something they're on the lookout for, and we'll go right to it. A lot of times, what that looks like is little tiny humans when older siblings get 24-hour need machines in their life. They're sort of armed with, you're going to love this baby. It's going to be so great. Wait till you be a big sister. And quite frankly, for that little tiny human, that is a whole bunch of malarkey.
Yeah.
It's a meatloaf that takes attention away from them. It has no value to them. It's a meatloaf who steals all the attention, especially if you're jumping from 1 to 2. That's such a ginormous change. Not just for parents. I mean, for parents, it's insane. For that little tiny human, they have been the center of the universe, and then a screaming meatloaf comes into their life. That is no fun at all. So we'll start there. A lot of times we choose to have children when our babies are 2 or 3 years old, which, oh God bless three-nagers.
That's what I have right now.
Samantha, I am sending you hugs. It is not an easy time. It is not an easy time. They are amazing.
It's interesting.
Yeah. 2, I always say 2 is they're tactile, trying to figure out how they get in the world. And 3 is hi, I am me. And you are you, and we're going to see
understand. And then they think that they're like this, almost like the same level as you sometimes. And I'm
Oh,
like, listen, you tiny little person,
yeah.
let's
Mhm.
hold on a second.
Yeah, they want to see whose will is going to who's going to win.
Yeah.
Whose will is
Yeah.
going to be stronger, for sure. So a lot of that is we have conversations, the parents and I have conversations where I can say like, okay, understandably, this is exhausting and annoying, and you want to throw this human through a wall. And this is what's going on for that little human.
Mhm.
And we need to talk about how we're going to identify that. So tell me what you want your life to look like, how you want to parent, what your parenting styles are, and then we can talk about like I can translate this tantrum. I can
Mhm.
translate this defiance. I can translate this sadness, and
Mhm.
let's talk about systems. So it can be really different. It looks really different in a million ways. Some little humans want to be empowered to help the little tiny meatloaf. Some little humans want nothing to do with the 24-hour need machine. Some little humans want to like kind of like figure out how that's all going to go for them and where they fit in this big tossed salad of the new family. Or fruit salad, I guess is
Yeah.
a better way. But yeah, and so we come up with sometimes we come up with like real like caught you being generous jars and
Mhm. Mm.
my
Oh,
power. I almost just threw
yeah.
up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Um, and systems, ways of helping, lots of different ways. And other times, like I said, sometimes I come in for 3 hours and I say like, exit stage left with that little human. I've got the
Mhm.
meatloaf. You go give that person the time that they deserve.
The time. That's really nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's super important. And it is a struggle to bring in the second one for sure.
Yeah.
How about hands-on education? Like with maybe like how to maybe it's Sunny coming through talking to
Yeah,
you
right?
saying
That's so funny.
um of like bathing. Do you do that
Do
stuff?
all
Like
the
show them how to
things.
do
So
all
we
of
do
that?
everything from bathing, nail clipping, diapering, baby wearing, swaddling, gas, how to move gas through. I
Mhm.
mean, everything that comes with baby, we go over as it's moving through.
Everything that everyone should be taught to do but isn't taught to do,
Yeah.
that's what you do. Okay.
Leaps versus leaps versus growth spurts, baby
Hmm.
development, what's going on in mom's body and or the birthing parent's body and how that changes. We go through, and that is ongoing. Like
Hmm.
that is in the time that people choose to work with me, we are constant. That is a constant conversation of all the things:
Yeah.
circumcision care, belly button care, cradle cap, baby acne. And if you can think of it, we go over
You
it.
can, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more into lactation consulting. So what are some common misconceptions or challenges new mothers face when it comes to breastfeeding, and how do you address them?
Whew, golly. Well, I think the biggest one is, am I making enough? Are they getting enough? That's a big, huge one. The other thing that
Hmm.
happens is, and that sort of gets perpetuated. Lactation consultants in the hospital, I do not like to speak ill of anybody in my field. They are
Hmm.
amazing and they are stretched thin and they are given a finite amount of time to go over things. But a lot of times it is it's overly mechanical and overly structured. The whole idea of like 15 minutes on each side is just not true. Like,
Hmm.
as you pointed out, we are mammals who just want to be satiated, as you said that you noticed with your son as opposed to your daughter. And that's really what we're looking for. So that's the first thing we go through is you can almost guarantee that you're making enough. If there isn't something physiological going on, there's no reason to think that you're not.
Hmm.
Some people have low glandulars. Those breasts look very specific. Some people may have had augmentation in some way, shape, or form, whether it be an enlargement or reduction, and that can affect it. Some 20% of women have low iron, and low iron can affect it. Thyroid stuff can affect it. But unless we know there's something actually physiological going
Yeah.
on, more often than not, you're making enough.
Right.
And that is a moving target. So I always teach parents, the first thing I teach them to do is to look to your baby to find out whether or not they're fully fed. And that looks like your baby being a limp noodle, that milk trunk that we're looking for. So if you can lift their arm up and it flops back, your baby is fully fed. And then also to really teach the reality of feeding in the first 2 weeks to really like almost 3 months, you're feeding between 10 and 12 times in a 24-hour period.
It's crazy. I was
Yeah.
also not prepared for that.
No. Yeah, for real. So that's a big thing. Just really teaching like how to dumb it down. And really, I think what sort of I don't like to say what sets me apart, but like my tactic is a little bit different than others, is that I am fully focused on the feeding parent and not so much the baby. Babies are all be fine. Those little tiny humans are fine. They're going to be
Yeah.
fed and loved and all the things. But if the feeding parent, if mama is feeling good, then the dyad is doing really phenomenally. So it's that idea of like putting your oxygen mask on first. If she
Yeah.
is empowered and feeling good and feeling comfortable, everybody else is doing great.
Yeah. And so how do you support them in finding like do you support only lactation, only breastfeeding, or do you do
No.
bottle feeding too? How do you find or help them to guide them what their journey is?
I'm a full, and when people hire me, I put this right out there first. I am not at all a breastfeeding Nazi in any way, shape, or form. I think it's cool. Breastfeeding is super cool. I could do hours on how cool it is. My children were, because they were born early and I didn't know what I didn't know, were both back and forth formula fed and breastfed. My son became much more exclusively breastfed, but mostly that's because I'm painfully forgetful, as you've seen in this video, and I never forgot my food. So it was easier on the go. But I always want to do what works best for the feeding parent.
Right.
There's a lot of different ways. And what works best for like the whole family unit, especially with seconds, I find a lot of times that like the supporting partner wants to be more involved and they want to be involved, they want to be there, and mom wants to be back with the older kid. And there's like a lot of moving parts. So that is also a moving target. We are always evaluating if someone has a postpartum mood disorder. Feeding may not be the best. I've supported people who have a history of sexual abuse and they weren't sure how feeding would go. And so we started off not, and then we moved to a fully fed from the body person. But that, it all matters. People have to go back to work. There's a million different reasons. So do all the things. I've worked with women who have exclusively breastfed. I've worked with women who have only formula fed right from jump. We do all things, whatever works best for the family unit in their worlds is always the best answer. Always.
Oh, that's amazing. And so like just a calming relief, because I feel like people they think they need to do one thing or they think they need to do the other, and like having that support in knowing that your decision is the right one, like based on a professional observing you, not forcing you, like helping you to find what works best for you, which is what I love.
When I see moms struggling, this is the conversation I always have with them. I ask them to close their eyes and picture people in their life that they think are crushing life. That they're like, when I have my act together, I'm going to be like Samantha. And then I want them to say to themselves, do you know whether or not Samantha was formula fed or breastfed? Because I'm guaranteeing you don't.
Yeah.
And so
and that's what as a high school teacher, I'm like, I don't know which kids when they come in my class, I'm not like, okay, the kids who are breastfed, you come sit up front. Everybody else, you're in the back. Okay.
All your students were breastfed. No.
Yeah. And that was definitely a good, like, mind settling thing for myself during parenthood. Cause I'm like, I see them in 15 years and I don't know what happened when they were this young. And I guarantee you it was all very different and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine.
Exactly.
All right. So another question that so many mothers have, and I know this is like, talking to so many new moms, is setting boundaries with family members, friends, whomever. So can you maybe share some strategies for managing maybe visitors or setting boundaries during the postpartum period?
For sure. I think what I see happen most often with families is that it is really hard, and understandably, for new parents to reorient their mind that this is now they're creating a new family of origin. Like I said earlier, like it's weird to think that I'm the mom, but like we're going to do their damage. And when they decide we're going to be like, how am I going to bring mom into this? Right. Like,
right.
That sort of thing.
That was hard to do.
Hard. It's super hard. So we talk about that. I do one prenatal visit before you have your child. And we talk about that. We just put that out in the ether. So the first thing that I think is really important, I encourage parents to do, is before this little tiny 24-hour need machine comes into their life, is for partners to come up with language about exactly that and to see what feels right to them, to each partner. What is mom or dad or, in-laws? What does all that look like? What is the language? How can they create and establish and feel comfortable and empowered in their new family of origin? So that's the first one. Sometimes we role play that out. Sometimes we talk it out in that prenatal thing. And it's like an instant session in that moment. Like, how does this feel to you? I hear you saying this. I hear her saying this, and like talking about all of that. The other thing is to get really honest, really honest. It is okay to say, as a birthing parent and a new parent, to say, like, you can come over on Tuesday, you can come from 1 to 3, and then I'm going to need you to go
Yeah.
because I'm going to have to feed and I'm going to be really tired and I'm done at that end. And the reality of all of that is theirs to receive. It doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
whether they like it or not. They are not there in the trenches with
Mm-hmm.
you with this 24-hour need machine, working off of a grand total of maybe 4 hours of sleep. So if they want to come home and be cranky, that's on them.
Mm-hmm.
They got to see your baby for a little bit, and to be saying that all the time. And then, because I am, as we talked in the very beginning, trying to learn my own things and trying to assist myself and all the things, I don't do these things in my personal life. But one thing that I love, because I am so far from a badass in my own assertion of things, I love being the bodyguard to new parents.
I love that.
Like, they can't come from 1 to 4 when I'm there
Mm-hmm.
because it's full of hours, or have them come from 1 to 4 when I'm there, and I will be your mouthpiece, which I have done on many, many occasions.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
is so wonderfully therapeutic. All the things I haven't been able to say to the
You're like,
people.
I can't do this in my own life, but I'm going to do it for you.
Wrong. Yeah. We'll bring that to my therapist and we'll practice that there. But yeah,
Oh my
so there
gosh.
have been a lot of different moments. I worked with a mom who had an infant loss and went through a lot of IVF to have her next baby. And it was a very long and arduous process for her when I supported her with her rainbow baby. I was her antepartum doula, so I supported her while she was on bed rest. I was actually in that birth as an emotional support animal. And then I was her postpartum doula and lactation consultant. And when she finally had this little human after years of an infant loss and then IVF, she had been, and it was in the pandemic, this was right out of the pandemic, and she had been in sweatpants for like 2 or 3 years out of sadness. And when this new little human came into her life, she was getting up every day and she was putting on makeup and she was getting dressed and she was getting her daughter dressed. And after weeks, her mother came to me and pulled me aside and said, I think that she's disconnected from her baby because all she cares about is how she looks. And I turned to this mother and I said, I hear you. And she was like digging on the mom a little bit. And I said, I hear you. And I understand maybe where that perspective is, but this is also a woman who wants the world to see how healthy and successful she is. And every day she is putting herself together and dressing this little tiny baby and going out into the world whole and healthy after 2.5 years of being broken. You're reading this wrong. So stop saying this to her and change your perspective. And it was amazing. And her and the mom had been complaining to me for weeks about how she felt a judgmental eye from her mom and her sister and how she felt all these things. And she wasn't going to have the ability to say like F off as she kind of, but I sure as heck could
But you
have.
can. You're like, I don't have to see you at dinner next week. I'll tell you what's up.
Like I always say to my families, I only want the two of them to like me.
Right.
I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. I just want the family, the nucleus family that I'm working for and working with to like me. Anyone else, I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of that. And then when they can't do it, I just like, being a heavy. So that's the way.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Bodyguard Liz.
Don't mess with my mamas.
Don't mess with her. Yeah, don't mess with the mamas. That's it. You
You
can mess with her, but not the moms.
don't mess with my mamas, for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, oh my gosh, you've given us so much information, insight, and just sharing so much. But looking ahead, what are your hopes and goals for the future with your practice and the families that you serve?
Yeah, so you started talking about how we don't know all the things we don't know. And starting this past summer of 2023, and definitely moving in 2024 and beyond, I have become obsessed, maybe to the point of unhealth, I'm not sure, teach of prenatal education. I love my birthing professionals. I love working with them. I love my doulas and my midwives and all of the people. They're phenomenal. But we focus so heavily on educating on birth. And as we said before, it's 5 seconds on the map of your life. And while it does have a profound impact, it is something that you can work through and overcome. You are postpartum for forever.
Yeah.
Never stop being postpartum. And we do all of this stuff, and then hand these 24-hour need machines off to these exhausted parents and say, good luck.
Good luck.
So myself, along with a person you had on your podcast, Mariah Martin,
Mariah, yes.
doula and a sleep expert, a certified sleep expert, have developed a class called Eat, Sleep, Poop, and it is held monthly on the second Saturday of every single month, and it is 2 hours. We generally go over, but it is everything from the golden hour postpartum, that right when your baby is born on your chest, to diapering, bathing, sleep, feeding, all the aspects of feeding, all of the things. And then exactly what you and I have been talking about, the impact that this little tiny human has on you emotionally, on your partnership emotionally, on your being emotionally, on your hormones. We cover it all.
That's
And
awesome.
I've become really obsessed with it because it doesn't necessarily make postpartum life easier, but the expectations that we have set all of us out with about this kumbaya beauty, and I do think it is changing, but not to the extent that it should be. Especially in the world of social media, there is a corner of the universe that is super honest about it, but that isn't full honesty either. So we get down and dirty about all of it, and I love it as much as I love making those bluebirds for every single family, really setting people's expectations. There's been a lot of studies about how that changes. 35% of people with doulas end up having a 35% less chance of postpartum mood disorders.
Wow.
Partners also can have postpartum mood disorders because they have no idea what the birthing parent is experiencing, both while pregnant and postpartum. They don't even know how to dive in. So if they're armed with education and we're telling them, here's how you can support. If we hand you this folder about lactation, say this to the lactation consultant because the birthing parent isn't going to be able to. Do this. Go set up a room like this. This is what bathing looks like. This is how you help. Setting everybody's expectations, it just is such a huge game changer.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. It's the simple, it's like, I mean, even though the whole thing isn't simple, but the expectation of just setting it to not be what you do see on most people's social media. And it is so interesting. Like, you know, when not trying to like throw any of my friends under the bus, but like, you know, they'll be bitching and complaining in the group chat about something, and then the next thing, you know, it's like that, like, yeah, my world, oh, these babies, we just had the best day, and I'm like, I know what happened that day. This is not what happened. And you know, and I'm probably guilty of it myself too, where, you know, I catch a good moment, but like I'm not going to stop and video a tantrum every time it happens. And so people create a narrative in their head around what you're posting, that moment is that 1 second picture that you snapped is what is happening the whole day, which is not what's happening.
100%. Also, we make more, not all the time, certainly, but more often than not, like we make these little tiny humans out of this moment of like falling in love with our partner. And then we're like, oh, it's going to be just so a ball of love and light. And it's poop and gas and sleepless and leaking boobs and leaking vaginas and crying partners who don't know how to jump in and screaming children and overbearing in-laws and friends who know everything, do it their way, even though it doesn't. Oh, it's so much noise. It's insane. So
the overstimulation was just,
and with all of that, I'm obsessed with the
and that is the one thing that my husband did such a good job with, was the little like kind of like almost like postpartum doula type stuff that he would just see, like I was just able to care for the babies and then everything else was just kind of done. But I don't think that's normal, which, you know, is
that's awesome.
That's very lucky. Very, very, very lucky with that.
It's not lucky.
We definitely bounce off each other, which is good. I was very grateful for that because it made it a lot easier postpartum.
We did a lot of work to get there.
We did. Yeah.
It's a happy accident for sure.
Thanks. All right. Well, oh my gosh, I loved talking with you. You're going to have to come back on and talk more about more stuff in the future. Yeah. Because you just are, I want to keep asking all these questions. So I'm like, oh gosh.
Real time.
Yeah, that'll be so fun. All right, so that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. As we wrap this conversation up with Liz, we are reminded of the profound impact compassionate support can have of families during the postpartum period. Liz's dedication and to empowering parents, her unwavering commitment to nurturing both physical and emotional well-being, and her genuine passion for creating a safe and judgment-free space shine through in every aspect of her work. We are grateful to Liz for sharing her wisdom, expertise, and personal journey with us today. If you'd like to learn more about Liz's service or connect with her, be sure to check the show notes out because I will link all of that. And to all the parents tuning in, remember you're not alone on this journey. Reach out, seek support, and remember to prioritize self-care as you navigate the beautiful and sometimes challenging path of parenthood. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it. You can follow me on Instagram at @therunningwinemom_. And Liz, where can the listeners find you?
They can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Nourished Fam. And then my website is nourishedfamilies.org.
Awesome. And I will link all of that. Thank you. This was so fun,
Oh my
Liz.
God, this is so much fun. Thank you so much, Samantha. I loved
Yes,
it.
I
I
loved
really
this.
appreciate it. Thank you. I listen to your
Yes.
podcast all the time. So thank you
Oh,
so much for putting me among some of the really incredible people you have on there. I
thank
really
you. That is so nice to hear, seriously. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I'll be back next Tuesday.